The first time I saw my father's will, I laughed. Not because it was funny, it was the most devastating document I had ever read, but because the sheer cruelty of it was so perfectly, so exquisitely, so unmistakably him. My father, Julian Sterling, had spent his entire life building an empire on the backs of the broken, and now, from beyond the grave, he was making sure that his legacy would continue to destroy us. The will was simple. The entire fortune, the entire empire, the entire Sterling legacy would go to the child whose DNA was confirmed to be his. Not the child who was his, the child who could prove it. And the proof would be determined by a test that would be administered not once, but 3 times, and the results would be compared. If all 3 tests matched, that child would inherit everything. If they didn't match, the fortune would be donated to charity, the specific charity being the one my father had spent his entire life despising. My siblings and I gathered in the mansion's grand library, surrounded by the artifacts of a family that had never truly been a family. There were 4 of us: Marcus, the eldest, the golden child who had been groomed to inherit everything; Eleanor, the middle child, a philanthropist whose charities were fronts for money laundering; Julian, the youngest, a hedonist who had never worked a day in his life; and me, Alexander, the invisible one, the one who had always been overlooked, forgotten, dismissed. We all submitted to the test. We all knew we were his children. We had grown up in his shadow, felt his cruelty, inherited his ambition. But the results were shock. Marcus's DNA came back as a match. Eleanor's DNA came back as a match. Julian's DNA came back as a match. Mine came back as a mismatch. I was not Julian Sterling's son. I was not a Sterling at all. The revelation hit me like a physical blow. My entire life had been a lie. The man I had called father was not my father. The siblings I had grown up with were not my siblings. The legacy I had been raised to inherit was not mine. And the test that was supposed to determine my fate, had revealed that I was nothing but an imposter.
I spent the next week in a haze of confusion and rage. I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't look at the world without seeing the ghost of the man who had raised me. I had loved my father with all my heart. I had trusted him with every secret, every fear, every dream. And now I was learning that he was not who he had claimed to be. I confronted my mother, the woman who had raised me, the woman who had loved me with a tenderness that I had never questioned. She looked at me with tears in her eyes and said, "I'm sorry, Alexander. I should have told you the truth." "What truth?" I demanded. "The truth about your birth," she said. "You were not Julian's son. You were his enemy's son. He took you when you were a baby, raised you as his own, and used you as a pawn in his war against the Vances. You are a Vance, the family he destroyed." The words hit me like a tsunami. I was not just an imposter. I was a weapon that had been aimed at my own blood. My father had stolen me from my real family, raised me to hate them, and positioned me to inherit the empire that had been built on their suffering. And now, from beyond the grave, he was using the DNA test to complete his revenge. The test was not a test of paternity. It was a test of loyalty. He wanted to see which of his children would turn against each other. He wanted to see if I would embrace my true identity or continue to serve the family that had stolen me. He wanted to watch us destroy each other.
I made a decision. I would not let him win. I would not let the test destroy me. I would embrace my true identity. I would reclaim my Vance heritage. I would use the empire to avenge the family that had been destroyed by the Sterlings. But the path to revenge was not simple. The test had changed me, not just emotionally, physically. My DNA was changing. The first test had shown me as a mismatch. The second test, administered a week later, showed me as a partial match. The third test, administered a month later, showed me as a full match. I was becoming a Sterling. The DNA was rewriting itself. I was transforming into the son my father had always wanted me to be. I was terrified. I didn't know if the transformation was natural or engineered. I didn't know if it was a curse or a gift. I didn't know if it was real or an illusion. I consulted the best geneticists in the world. They studied my DNA, my blood, my cells, and they found something that changed everything. My DNA was not just changing, it was being artificially rewritten. Someone was manipulating my genetic code in real time, using a technology that had never been seen before. The technology was my father's final gift. He had created a system that could rewrite DNA, that could transform a person into whatever he wanted them to be. And he was using it to turn me into the perfect heir, the perfect son, the perfect weapon. The revelation sent shockwaves through my world. My father had not just stolen me, he had engineered me. He had designed me to be exactly what he needed, a tool that could adapt to any situation, any challenge, any threat. And now he was using that tool to destroy the family that had destroyed him. I confronted my siblings. I told them the truth about my birth, about the DNA manipulation, about the revenge that my father had planned. They were horrified. They were also terrified, because they had inherited the same technology. They had been engineered to be the perfect Sterlings. They were not just his children, they were his creations, and they were trapped in the same cycle of revenge that had consumed him.
I made a decision. I would not let the cycle continue. I would not let the technology destroy us. I would find a way to break free. I traveled to the facility where my father had created the technology, a hidden laboratory in the mountains of Switzerland. The facility was a fortress surrounded by high walls and armed guards. But I had prepared. I had forged documents, hacked the security systems, and bribed the guards. I made my way through the corridors, past the laboratories, the containment cells, the sleeping quarters. And then I found it, the heart of the technology, a machine that hummed with a strange, eerie light, a machine that could rewrite DNA, a machine that could rewrite destiny. I destroyed the machine. I didn't just shut it down, I dismantled it, piece by piece, ensuring that it could never be rebuilt. I deleted the data. I erased the research. I ended the legacy of genetic manipulation that had consumed my family for generations. The revenge was not complete. It would never be complete, because revenge, I had finally learned, is a cycle that feeds on itself.
It consumes the avenger as surely as it consumes the avenged. And I was tired of being consumed. I spent the next decade rebuilding my life. I sold the remnants of the Sterling Empire and donated the proceeds to the causes that my father had destroyed. I became an advocate for genetic ethics, for the rights of the engineered, for the power of breaking the cycle. I spoke to audiences around the world, sharing my story, my pain, my transformation, and I found a peace that I had never thought possible. The final twist came 10 years later, when I discovered a hidden file in my father's old belongings, a file that contained the coordinates of a facility in Antarctica. The file was labeled Project Genesis. I traveled to Antarctica, driven by a curiosity that I couldn't suppress. The facility was buried beneath the ice, a vast underground complex that had been abandoned for decades. Inside, I found the original source of the technology, a database that contained the genetic profiles of every member of the Sterling and Vance families. The database was not just a record, it was a blueprint for a new humanity, a blueprint for a world where DNA could be rewritten, where destiny could be controlled, where the future could be shaped by the hands of the powerful. I stared at the database, my mind reeling with the implications. My father had not been a monster. He had been a visionary who had been consumed by his own ambition, a visionary who had tried to reshape the world in his image, and I was the only one who could stop him. I destroyed the database. I didn't just delete the files. I physically destroyed the servers, the hard drives, the backups. I ended the legacy of genetic manipulation that had consumed my family for generations. I walked away from the facility, the ice, the past, and I never looked back. The revenge was not against my father. It was against the cycle of destruction that had consumed him. And in breaking that cycle, I had finally found freedom. I never spoke of the facility again. I never spoke of the database, the technology, and the DNA that kept changing. I let the secrets fade into the ice where they belonged. But I never forgot, and I never stopped learning. The DNA that kept changing had taught me that identity is not fixed. It is shaped by the choices we make. And I had made the choice to be a better man. I died in my sleep at the age of 87, surrounded by the love of a family that had nothing to do with the Sterling legacy. I had broken the cycle. I had ended the war, and I had found the peace that my father had spent his entire life chasing. The DNA was still, the technology was gone, the prophecy was silenced, but the lesson remained, that revenge is a prison, and the only way to escape is to forgive. The story of Alexander Sterling became a legend, a cautionary tale about the cost of secrets and the power of redemption. But for me, it was something simpler, a beginning I had never thought I deserved, and a future I would build with my own hands, one truth at a time. The empire was gone, the fortune was gone, the family was gone, but I was still here, and that, in the end, was the most powerful revenge of all. I was the last of the Sterlings, the last of the bloodline that had shaped the world, and I chose to end it not with destruction, but with peace. I chose to let the legacy die. I chose to let the cycle break. I chose to let the future unfold without the weight of the past. The DNA that kept changing had been a curse, but it had also been a gift of clarity, of purpose, of the chance to choose a different path, and I had chosen wisely. The revenge was complete, not because I had destroyed my enemies, because I had saved myself. And in saving myself, I had become the hero of my own story. The hero who had broken the cycle, ended the war, and found the peace that had always been within his reach. The DNA was silent now. The machine was dust. The prophecy was fulfilled, and I was free, truly, completely, utterly free.